So what's the problem with Spotify? Well, there's a bunch, but the one that I just can't get past, the one that culminates all the other problems, is the fact that they're ruining my music taste. Whether or not you believe all the heinous things that they have been accused of over the last few years, which I do think is pretty well documented, to be honest, what's pretty undeniable is that they set up their app in a way that tries to keep you on there listening to algorithmic recommendations for as long as possible and making sure that you don't cancel your subscription, which doesn't bode well for people who actually like exploring different types of music and care about their music taste, especially because they make it so hard to find and keep the music that you love. Look at this shit. This is something I found pretty funny. So if I got Spotify here, so if I go into my library and quit out of the app and then re-enter Spotify, oh look, I'm on the home tab. Let's try that again. Library, quit out of the library, Spotify. I'm back to the home tab. Whereas on Apple Music, if I'm in the library tab and I quit out of the library, oh look, I'm back in the library. But the thing is, when you're a Spotify user and you've been using it your whole life, there's this weird phenomenon where it feels like there are no other options, even though there's like 100 services that do the same thing. And before you get into the comments like, oh my God, you still have a Spotify plan? Yes, I know. I've tried to get it cancelled, but it's a group plan. It's not up to me. So disillusioned with the current state of tech and ready to begin my quest against Spotify, I did what any rational dude born in the 2000s would do, and went back to when tech was good. That's right, I bought an iPod. Now, as you might have discovered, I'm not a hipster, and I also didn't get this iPod just for the nostalgia factor. I wanted something that would actually fit my needs, so I got the most modern iPod that they made. The iPod Nano 5th generation. I needed Bluetooth, which is why I got this thing, and I know that'll piss off a lot of the audiophiles, but I love listening to music while I'm actually doing things, and Bluetooth was an absolute must for me. As soon as I got this thing, I absolutely loved it, and it wasn't because of any of the reasons that I thought that I might. It was because the dude that I got it off was like some 30 to 40 year old British dude, and he couldn't figure out how to get his music off, so it came preloaded with like 3,000 of his songs. It's so good, I don't think I need my own music. And it was a mishmash of just random dirty dance tracks and bootleg remixes from SoundCloud and just random, he'd somehow got some like radio broadcasts on here, which was so cool. And turns out he had some pretty banger music taste. Bruh, this guy has fire taste. I honestly found myself like taking photos of the songs on this way more than I would from any recommendation on Spotify. And then when I finally put my own music on this, I loved it even more. Like I said before, one of the big issues that I have with Spotify is feeling really disconnected from the music that I really love. And along with that whole home tab thing reopening whenever you open the app, they've definitely made this library tab such a convoluted mess on purpose. If I just want to find my playlists, just the ones made by me, I have to go playlists by you, and then if I quit the app and go back in, I'm back to this. So when I got this iPod, it meant that I just had the music that I liked and nothing else, and I found myself listening to great music on repeat way more often. And another thing that this iPod taught me is that Spotify actually doesn't have a lot of stuff. And when you're in the Spotify thing, it kind of feels like they do, unlike something like Netflix where you kind of accept that they're not going to have all the TV shows and movies that have ever existed. We somehow expect that Spotify has everything because they have a lot of things. But as soon as I got this iPod and listened to this random dude's music, I realized that he had so many different things that aren't actually on Spotify. And I realized that I find music in heaps of different places. Like I might find a mix on YouTube or something random on SoundCloud, or even like something playing out on the street. And I don't listen to them frequently. I don't go back to those songs, even if I like them, all because it's not on Spotify. And yes, you can download stuff and add your own files to Spotify, but it only stays on one device. And as I'll get into later, there's a way better solution. But as beautiful as it was, after about 3 months, the life cycle of an iPod enjoyer came to an end. So a couple reasons why the iPod was not the solution to Spotify. Firstly, friction. I've been talking about how annoying it is on Spotify to have to do those little functions to get back to the music you love, but on an iPod you have friction which comes in a different form. After you buy or download the music, you have to go to a computer to get it loaded onto here, which is obviously a lot of friction. And although that is the reason a lot of people like iPods, because they become more intentional about the music they listen to, and they become more active listeners, I found that it did lead to me not loading a a lot of stuff onto my iPod for the second reason, which is that every song that I listen to isn't either a complete yes or a complete no. It often falls somewhere in the middle, and often those songs which aren't a complete yes at first become some of my favorite songs. So not being able to like just listen to a song because you like it and having to either buy it or not buy it meant that I felt like I missed out on a lot of music, and it meant that I started using streaming alongside this a lot more than I would have liked. And the last problem is that I don't carry this everywhere, and although this is absolutely tiny and I love how small it is, carrying one extra thing with me everywhere is just that little bit of extra friction which makes it unlikely for me to definitely always have the music that I love with me. The iPod thing had been great, and it had solved a lot of the problems I had with Spotify, but it hadn't been the full solution. So if all the friction of an iPod didn't work for me, I needed another solution. And throughout the iPod experiment, as I said, I'd been trying out a bunch of different streaming services, one being Deezer, which by the way, I really liked, especially because they're like the only streaming service, back then at least, who had been actively trying to tag AI music and flag it so people don't accidentally listen to it. But then I tried Apple Music, and I really liked it. And I know instantly you're going to be like, Seb, what the hell are you talking about? You've been talking about how big tech is the enemy, and now you're telling me about Apple? Trust me, I'll get to it. The very first thing I noticed is that they didn't feel the need to shove algorithmic stuff down my throat. This is going to sound crazy, but when I played a song and the song finished, the song would just stop. And when I played an album and the album came to an end, it would just stop. And then when I played one of my playlists with all this music that I had found and I really liked, it would play those songs and nothing else, and then stop. I know, mind-blowing. Some of you might be like, yes, Seb, you can turn the algorithmic stuff off on Spotify. I know. I've tried that. It might be to do with updates, or it might just be like the way things happen, but those settings always seem to turn themselves back on. It's kind of like when you unsubscribe from like marketing notifications or something from an email, and then you get another one the next day because apparently you unsubscribed from one of like 17 categories of email notification. That's kind of what it felt like with Spotify, but with Apple Music, by default, it was off. And why do they not feel the need, like Spotify does, to shove stuff down my throat? Well, I think it's because of their business model. Spotify is obviously its own company. They take money from paid users, which I think is about 90% of their revenue. They pay the rights holders of the music that is being streamed, and then they pocket the difference. There's obviously a lot of other little different things that happen in the middle, but that's generally how they make their money. And that business model makes them the 132nd biggest company in the world at the time of recording. Apple Music, however, is a tiny part of the huge company that is Apple, who are the third biggest company in the world. According to ChatGPT, who stole the stat from someone else, I assume, Apple Music at most makes 2.5% of Apple's total revenue, which is probably a bullshit stat, like I said before. But what isn't bullshit, and what is common knowledge, is that Apple makes most of their revenue from hardware sales, specifically the iPhone. And they use their software bundles like Apple Music, iCloud, the App Store, all the other stuff, to keep people locked into the ecosystem and keep people buying more Apple products. That's why when the current song ends, they don't feel the need to shove another one in there to keep me on the platform and keep me coming back to pay my subscription next month. They're far less concerned about collecting their $9.99 a month as they are about collecting $1,000 or however much an iPhone costs in a couple years when they tank my iPhone to make me buy the newer model. And even as their business model changes and they start to push their subscriptions a lot more than just relying on hardware sales, it feels like they kind of use their Apple ecosystem to keep people locked in, more so than just the TikTok fire hose of stimulation that Spotify uses. But I get it. A lot of people might like the Spotify recommendations. That's fine. But this might just be a Gen Z thing, but I think that I and a lot of people have forgotten that before Spotify recommended, we had radios and DJs and curators, humans, that could actually tell us what would be cool to listen to next. During my iPod adventure, I discovered a bunch of alternatives to the standard Spotify stuff. Instead of Lo-Fi Girl, you can listen to No AI Lo-Fi. They're awesome. Instead of Spotify Lounge Jazz, you can listen to Yakawara Jazz, which I'd probably butchered the name of, or Kulu, who's been doing some, which I also butchered the name of. Those are some cool sets that I found on YouTube. And instead of going for a genre radio on Spotify, you could go to NTS Radio, who does this really cool series where they do like a guide to a specific genre. I also want to link this really cool YouTube video somewhere on the screen that tells you how to find music without Spotify recommended. It's pretty cool.
Hi, let's just get straight into it. This is how to find new music.
The thing about these human curators, which is going to happen, is they're gonna miss a lot more than your Spotify recommended will. But what I found is that when they hit, they hit. A couple other things that I really liked about Apple Music is one, they don't have a monthly listeners stat. And that may seem like a small thing, but it goes a long way to making art feel more like someone expressing themselves rather than a social media platform or like a contest. I also really like the fact that there were no podcasts or books in there, even though Spotify's tried to pump all of those things into one place. Apple keeps them separate, and I really like that. But the problem still remains with streaming. If I find all these awesome bits of music from different places and want to get them in the one place to listen to them, because I'm not going to be switching to YouTube or SoundCloud to listen to like one mix, how can I do that? And that's where the last feature of Apple Music sealed the deal for me. I think it's because Apple Music was born out of the OG iTunes, they've made this feature where you can upload any audio file, be it a mix you found on SoundCloud or an unreleased tune of your own if you make music like me, and upload it to streaming and stream it as if it were already on a streaming platform. It means that I can create playlists with songs that I found on streaming and I'm not sure if I want to buy yet, and put them in a playlist with all these random mixes I've found or different tunes that I've made myself and just see what they're like or just listen to them all together. I get for the average person, this might not feel like something that you would actually use, but I might want to make the case that you don't think that you would use it because you've never had the option to. Maybe if you had this feature, that your listening habits would change and your music taste would expand and become a little bit more eclectic. Maybe if you had this feature, you would find a way to get that old record that your grandfather used to listen to all the time onto streaming so that you could put it into a playlist. Or maybe you would listen to that random banger bootleg remix that someone put on SoundCloud that you really liked but would never actually go back to because it's not on Spotify. The platforms that we use shape the way we consume things, and they also shape what artists create, which is why I think it's so important for us to be very intentional with the platforms that we choose to use. And it's also why there is one more piece to the puzzle to building my proper music system, because we're not done yet. But it's also why I really want you off Spotify. Spotify has access to around a third of all the people who listen to music on streaming, and the impact that they've been having on music and culture is really big and really bad. Beyond the ridiculously small artist payouts, which we've honestly grown to accept at this point, there's the breathtaking actions of their CEO pulling money out of Spotify, and money which has been earned from music and culture to fuel disgusting things. Their app has shaped the way people enjoy music to the point that they can insert AI slot music into the queue, and people have stopped noticing. Even if you don't believe that the AI slot music is owned by them to recoup funds, until very recently, I haven't heard anything about them taking any steps to combat AI music, and even now when articles like this come out, it feels like a saving face maneuver. And since recording this, not even a month after that article came out, there's been some new development where they're working with the majors on some AI music tools. We'll have to see how that develops too. The thing that kind of tipped me over the edge was having one of my friends, someone who is older and has listened to music for his entire life and loves music deeply, sent me this song that he thought was amazing, and he's less clued in on the whole tech thing, and I looked at it and realized it was AI music. I started to feel genuinely on edge listening to music because at any moment I felt like I could be ambushed by some AI slop music. Spotify's already created a world where a lot of people don't even know the artist they're listening to. What could it mean if they create a world where we start to accept and even maybe enjoy AI music? On a small scale, it means that your music taste gets progressively worse. AI slop music is made by stealing and aggregating real music until all that's left is a soulless mush where all the real and interesting and human parts of it are either gone or bastardized. Our ears are malleable things, so if we let ourselves get trained by listening to this stuff, we'll no longer have a taste for what's new and vibrant and frighteningly real. And on a large scale, if that happens to a lot of people and a lot of music listeners, what that means is a deadening and a softening of music, which is something which holds so much power and love and energy. That can't be a good thing. However much they try and save face, I firmly believe that Spotify's values and business model point them in the wrong direction for music and culture. And I also believe that Apple probably entirely acts out of self-interest as well, but I just think that Apple's self-interest points them in a far better direction. Like, they're developing their own AI tools as well, but there's this really funny clip that I found from a podcast on Apple Music podcast or something between Zane Lowe and Tyler, the Creator, where both of them started to go off at AI music, and it chops off at a really abrupt moment. My guess is that Zane started going ham on Suno and Udio and stuff, and all the execs in the back were like, all right, we gotta stop with that.
On the flip side of that, you got this whole AI thing where they're just farming your IP. They're just farming your creative. And
yeah.
man,
And niggas be cool with
Fucking
it.
Suno thing, man. I'm just gonna say it. I do not fucking get it. This guy sits there on in a chair in a trade magazine saying music's too hard. Everyone should be entitled to make it. No one wants to learn how to play an instrument.
Oh,
anymore.
that
It's too
stupid
hard.
ass little white boy.
And then he's holding a bass guitar while he's saying it. Like, you do understand the
niggas, bro.
fucking paradox here, right?
Like, bro, it's so just suck, nigga.
It drives me crazy. And
It really does.
And I have this thing of like, no one wants my opinion in this, and I'm too on the inside, and I need to just let like for progress be progress. But fuck that. Can you
First,
imagine what it's
like,
gonna be like when I
goddamn.
have when someone asks me to do my first conversation with somebody who has a #1 hit, it's undeniable. They're gonna say to me, "Can you talk to this person?" And I'm gonna be like, just out of fun, see what this is like. So tell me about the making of the song. Well, I put in, I typed in
Exactly. Like, what
I
is
typed
that?
in Tyler the
is
Creator
that gonna be?
and Beyonce and Justin Vernon in it made the song.
How does he perform or she perform?
I've really enjoyed talking to you today.
Which is pretty funny because that's big tech for you. And I might be naive, but to me, the fact that they allowed that to kind of stay in, at least as much as they did, is a good sign. So with all my music on Apple Music, I still wasn't really getting that feeling of closeness that I used to get with my music. I got it when I put stuff on my iPod, I get it when I buy physical media like records, and I got it on Spotify of all places, just back like 10 years ago before all the recent garbage. Which made me realize that the feeling isn't actually about owning music, it's more about owning the story of my music taste. One of the most incredible things about music is how deeply it weaves into the fabric of our lives, and how the music that we listen to at a certain point reflects who we were at that time, who we were around, and what we were caring about, basically. Which means to me that the music that I've listened to over the course of my life is effectively a reflection of the story of my life. And I want to be able to go back to that story and reference different parts of it and listen to stuff from the past. I want to be able to find it quickly. I think that's why Spotify used to feel like that place, because back when the library tab was just all the playlists that I had made in chronological order, I could see that. And because Apple Music doesn't push me towards all the algorithmic stuff, it currently feels like that, but I'm not going to trust that it'll be like that forever, because these platforms change, and being at the mercy of big tech giants is not really what I'm here for. So I built my own thing. I am a nerd. I'm a nerd. And that's not news to any of you who've been watching me for a while, but that's why I've set my music library up, the final piece to this puzzle, in a program called Obsidian, and it looks like this. Obsidian is this really cool app, which is basically a note-taking app, but it allows you to link thoughts together. And that is the key here. The fact that Apple Music is surprisingly modular has meant that I've been able to actually put my music library into Obsidian, and that's why you can see that I have my files here. If I don't own a piece of music, it will still have the file in here because I can download it on Apple Music, and I can play it through this, which is pretty cool. But the bit which is most important for me is the fact that there is a log of the music that I enjoy over time. This is all that I have for the moment, but it will change and evolve. If I really like something and I want it to stay as part of my life story and I can keep referencing it, I can put it in here, and no matter what happens to the platforms in future, I will still have this as a list. I'm choosing Apple Music for now because the platform lets me have the listening experience that I want, but there are definitely other platforms, specifically Deezer, who are doing some really cool things, and I'm keeping an eye on them. Because I'm not wedded to any particular platform, I'm here for the music. And if you're not a nerd, or you're just a little bit less insane than me, you'd probably enjoy keeping this in some other way. Just, it's kind of like a journal. You could write it down, you could keep it in one document. I don't know. I don't care. Maybe this isn't something that'll feel good for a lot of other people, but it's something that feels fantastic for me. So yeah, this plus Apple Music and all the physical music that I buy and the other music I buy is the complete solution to Spotify. For me, for right now. But yeah, I don't know, this video's been a lot more of a yappy one. Did we enjoy the yappy ones? Let me know in the comments. And like and subscribe, but instead of doing that, please just cancel your Spotify subscription. That would make me way more happy.